So now I'm about to depart on a historic visit. Some of you are going with us to, as I said, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates. Before I do, I'll sign one of the most consequential executive orders in our country's history. I don't think there's ever been anything signed like this, certainly not with respect to health care, nothing even close.
President Trump at the White House a very short time ago, just before he headed out of the big White House to board Marine One, the beautiful, wonderful helicopter, classic vintage helicopter, to go to Joint Base Andrews, board Air Force One for the flight across the Atlantic Ocean. Now, I mentioned a little earlier there was my best girl and I had kind of a fun moment yesterday. We were hanging out and jawboning, talking about stuff. And here's a fun fact for the kids, for the whole gang. President Trump served as president of the United States before Joe Biden served as president of the United States, and after Joe Biden served as president of the United States. Joe Biden served as president after Donald Trump served as president of the United States and before Donald Trump served as president of the United States. Huh. Now that I say it out loud like that, it doesn't sound as curious as it did the first time I said it, but it's kind of fun, and it's a little bit of a math trick. History will show that Donald Trump was president of the United States before Joe Biden and after Joe Biden, while Joe Biden was president of the United States both after President Trump and before President Trump served as president. It's the same thing, but the opposite, kind of, right? And it's like it's sort of a brain twister, not quite a tongue twister, but it is a little bit fascinating. And being me and, doing with my time the things that I do with my time, of course, that there has been one other instance where Grover Cleveland was president of the United States in the 1880s, 1885 to 1889. Then Benjamin Harrison was president, 1889 to 1893, and then Grover Cleveland served again as president 2 non-consecutive terms, the only other time in American history that anyone ever served 2 non-consecutive terms as president was Grover Cleveland, as any child of 6 can tell you. But Grover Cleveland again in 1893 to 1897. So it's true that Grover Cleveland and Benjamin Harrison, 2 presidents of the United States long ago, also had the same experience where Grover Cleveland served as president both before and after Benjamin Harrison served as president, and Benjamin Harrison served as president both after and before Grover Cleveland served as president. But again, the last time that happened was the 1880s and the 1890s. So updating for modern times, and Donald Trump pulling off miracle after miracle, which he continues to do, honestly. But I thought it was kind of fun, my best girl and I talking, and it was triggered by something my best girl was reading. Said, hey, wait a minute, that means. So quite fascinating. And that means they have something in common. President Trump and President Biden have at least one thing in common. And Biden both preceded and succeeded. And this is another way. Trump and Biden both preceded and succeeded each other as president, right? But differently. Sit the kids down. Tell them to get a pen and a notepad and explain this one. Because Donald Trump was president of the United States before Joe Biden and after Joe Biden. Joe Biden was president of the United States after President Trump and before President Trump served as president. Kind of fun. All right, now that I say it out loud a couple of times, like, yeah, whatever. But I think it's kind of interesting. All right, now let's get to today's activities at the White House, because the President of the United States held a press conference, Donald Trump, held a press conference, and it was well over an hour long. The news media, I don't know what's wrong with them. I can't explain them anymore. But President Trump, so much to talk about the trade deal, the tariffs with communist China, because President Trump had his Treasury Secretary and his trade negotiator, Jameson Greer, meeting with the communist Chinese in Switzerland, in Geneva, Switzerland, and a big deal there. President Trump cobbled together a ceasefire between India and Pakistan over the weekend. Kind of a big deal. President Trump has the Russians and the Ukrainians sitting at the table with one another talking about a peace deal, which is a big deal. President Trump got a ceasefire out of the Houthi rebels because he's been bombing them forward to the Stone Age for about 50 days. And President Trump announced a big deal coming together now, having to do with reducing the price, the cost of pharmaceutical drugs, and that's kind of a big deal too. And that's just over the weekend. Kind of remarkable. Now let's go to soundbite number 36. Today's soundbite number 36, and President Trump signing an executive order having to do with the price of pharmaceutical drugs. And, the Democrats call it big pharma. It's big pharma. And they yell about it and they complain and they whine and they say they're going to fix it. And decades go by and they never lift a finger. And they literally have been prattling on about this incoherently for decades. And they have honestly done nothing to reduce the price of pharmaceutical drugs. By the way, we shouldn't be depending on communist China for pharmaceutical drugs in the United States the way that we currently do, the way that we have become accustomed to depending on communist China. So President Trump preparing to go aboard Marine One and then Air Force One across the pond, getting ready to leave the White House.
It's called Most Favored Nation. We are going to pay the lowest price there is in the world. We will get whoever is paying the lowest price. That's the price that we're going to get. So remember that. So we're no longer paying 10 times more than another country. Whoever is paying the lowest price, we will look at that price and we will say that's the price we're going to pay. Most favored nations. That's what it is.
Most favored nations status. And one of the things that he pointed out that I thought was pretty interesting is we are in the United States of America. Pharmaceutical drugs, we're now paying 70% more than we were paying in the year 2000. And Michael Piercy and I were talking about this here. And I said, of course, that is 25 years ago. Of course, and Michael cringed. He's like, oh, my God, that's 25 years ago. Yeah, I said, yeah, that's how that happens. President Trump, and I love the fact that he always does this, says the dirty, rotten, stinking, lying, violent, criminal Democrat Party that loves illegal alien gang members, they have been telling us forever that they're going to fix it. Oh, we're going to make drug price. Bernie Sanders and the whole gang. Oh, we're going to fix big pharma. It's a big enemy. Big pharma saves more lives every year than the United Nations does in any given decade. You're welcome. Thanks to big pharma, thanks to the patriarchy, thanks to the United States of America, President Trump.
And pharma is also very powerful. And the Democrats have protected pharma. This is the Democrats have protected pharma. These are the Democrats. And by the way, today Americans spend 70% more for prescription drugs than we spent in the year 2000. Think of that. Our country has the highest drug prices anywhere in the world by sometimes a factor of 5, 6, 7, 8 times.
And that's not good. And President Trump then signed an executive order on pharmaceutical drug prices. And it is what he did today and what he's been working on over the weekend honestly represents more action than the Democrat Party has taken on this matter in the history of the world, I think. While they talk about it, they just like enemies. They like villains. They're great at creating bad guys that they can attack and accuse and indict. And by the way, That's why Luigi Mangione, inspired by the filthy, violent, criminal, murderous, blood-drenched Democrat Party, that's why Luigi Mangione targeted, stalked, assassinated a pharmaceutical company CEO, Brian Thompson, who had done nothing wrong in his life, had kept his record clean, unlike Ras Baraka and his wife in New Jersey and his whole stinking family. But never mind that. And Luigi Mangione is a hero of the Democrat Party. They want to date him. That's a euphemism. Just amazing stuff. Now, President Trump signed an executive order he says will slash drug prices by up to 80%. Trump calls out Democrats and announces plans to drop prices of prescription drugs almost immediately. And then with him, he had a number of cabinet-level members of the administration with him. But RFK Jr., a lifelong Democrat from the lifelong Democrat family, and I won't go into the history of that family, but honestly, RFK Jr. took to the microphone as well, and he's like, obviously from a Democrat family and a lifelong Democrat himself.
This is an extraordinary day. This is an issue that, I grew up in the Democratic Party, and every major Democratic leader for 20 years has been making this promise to the American people. This was the fulcrum of Bernie Sanders' runs for presidency, that he was going to eliminate this discrepancy between Europe and the United States. But as it turns out, none of them were doing it. It's one of these promises that politicians make to their constituents, knowing that they'll never have to do it.
Knowing that they'll never have to do it. Well, it's not that they don't. Well, that's true. They don't have to do it because the New York Filthy Times and CNN's fake news, they just, they're amazing. And the Democrats have been lying to everybody and getting away with it because of information dominance. Just amazing, amazing stuff. And RFK Jr., lifelong Democrat family, decided to break out of that a bit and start telling the truth. And in order to do that, he had to come into the Trump administration as the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. Amazing stuff. And gosh, hey, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., why are the Democrats still getting away with this?
The reason they'll never have to do it is because they know that Congress is controlled in so many ways by the pharmaceutical industry. There's at least one pharmaceutical lobbyist for every congressman, every senator in Capitol Hill, and every member of the Supreme Court. By some estimates, 3.
3 lobbyists for the pharmaceutical companies, for every executive, for every member of Congress. And how do you think they all get so rich, the members of Congress? How does that happen? Isn't that amazing? And now President Trump signing the executive order at the White House today before winging off across the Atlantic Ocean. Trump calls for broad drug price cuts in executive order. Trump tells drug makers to cut prices on most favored nation pricing. Pharmaceutical shares recover in morning trading. By the way, I think I haven't looked at the stock market today, but with the deal with China, with peace deals breaking out, what must MSNBC be talking about? Maybe, child sacrifices or something that they like. So the Reuters news agency writing, U.S. President Donald Trump signing a wide-ranging executive order Monday directing drug makers to lower prices on their medications to align with what other countries pay. Why would we pay more than other countries? Oh, because we've cut stupid deals all over the place, haven't we? Yes, we have. Our leadership has not been everything that they should be over the past how many years, decades. Amazing. I've got more. I've got border stories for you. I've got all kinds of great stuff still ahead. You know that when a mother experiencing an unplanned pregnancy is deciding what to do about the future of well, herself and her unborn child, it can be overwhelming. The young mother might want to make the right choice, but society and those around her are telling her that the baby is not really a life, not a human life. Preborn's whole ministry, their entire approach to living, is to love these women and empower them with the choice of life. And it's an eternal moment. Stephanie, a young woman, was afraid when she found out she was pregnant. She felt she didn't deserve love and support. But after visiting a caring preborn clinic, she experienced her eternal moment when she saw her child in an ultrasound, saw the child moving, saw the heartbeat. She left the clinic feeling hopeful, and now she feels incredibly blessed by her 5-year-old son. When you support Preborn, you're supporting life-affirming clinics nationwide with free ultrasounds to help empower a young mother to choose life. Your tax-deductible donation of $28 a month is reaching eternity. To get involved, all you have to do is dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby when prompted. That's pound 250, the keyword is baby, or you can go to Al Gore's Amazing Internet to preborn.com/plant. That's preborn.com/plant. Eternity. All right, we've got a lot more because the Democrats and men competing in women's sports. What is wrong with Democrats? That's coming up as well. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at WashingtonTimes.com/Chris. Yeah, that's right. Joe Biden is Donald Trump's predecessor and successor. Donald Trump is Joe Biden's predecessor and successor. How can that be? That's where I think it's more fun for the kids. Now, wait a minute. Donald Trump is Joe Biden's predecessor and Joe Biden's successor, right? And Joe Biden is, vice versa. But Donald Trump, it took 2 terms in office to do that. For Joe Biden, it only took 1 term in office to do that. That'd be a fun thing to teach the kids, to share with the kids. Hey, it's fun for the kids. All right, I've got President Trump coming up. Also on South Africa, the Democrats are angry that President Trump is taking in white South African refugees because the black government of South Africa is getting everybody murdered because of their race. And the Democrats are good with that because they're white, and they still feel guilty about being the party of slavery and the Confederacy and all that. I've got that coming up, too. All right, the savages of Hamas have, at long last, released the American hostage Eden Alexander, who the bloodthirsty goblins from hell have been holding hostage for 584 days. And, where's Ted Koppel when you need him? Ted Koppel, back when the Islamic Republic attacked the U.S. Embassy and took hostages in 1979, ABC News Nightline, Ted Koppel, dun, 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 dun. Every night with an update, 444 days later, Ronald Reagan took the oath of office. January 20th, 1981, when the remaining U.S. hostages were released. Now, radical Islamic jihadis, Hamas, they take hostages, and the American media goes and gets lunch because human life is not their thing anymore. But the savages turned Eden Alexander over to the Red Cross, and then the Red Cross transferred Eden Alexander to the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, And now he's safe. That's how you can tell, because there's civilization over here and savagery over there. And now Eden Alexander allegedly en route home. So amazing stuff. No longer in Hamas hands. Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump's hostage negotiator, Witkoff. Talking about the release of the hostages, the framework. And Israel is sending a delegation to Doha for hostage talks, additional hostage talks, because, they've still got hostages because they're terrorists, and they're to call them barbarians would be insulting to barbarians who weren't nearly as savage and bloodthirsty as these people. I say hesitantly. President Trump at the White House short time ago in his more than 1 hour long press conference with a number of senior cabinet officials, something Joe Biden never did once. And the news media still attacks Donald Trump. They have no respect for themselves, the news media. President Trump.
They're going to be releasing Idan in about 2 hours from now, or sometime today, let's say. And again, they thought he was dead just a short while ago. His parents are so happy. They're so happy. So it's, as you know, Idan's the only American citizen who's captured and held hostage by Hamas since October 7th, 2023. And he's coming home to his parents, which is really great news. I mean, to me, it's big news.
And to his mother is big news. In fact, she got word on Mother's Day that her son would be released. American-Israeli joint citizen hostage, Idan Alexander, it's spelled E-D-A-N, Alexander, held captive in the Gaza Strip since October 7th, 2023, as President Trump just said, now has been released. And Hamas, you just got to hunt them and shoot them. It's sort of the only thing to do there. Alexander's mother, Yael, has arrived at a military base in Israel near Gaza, near the border, hoping to see her son even before he's taken to a hospital in Tel Aviv, because when you've been held for 584 days, well, probably want to have a good medical checkup. Alexander, a native of New Jersey, the state of where the Democrats are attacking the detention center, trying to free mobs of violent, illegal alien criminals, loose them on the public, because the Democrat Party is, closer politically to Hamas than they are to me, for example, on the political spectrum. New Jersey native, he traveled to Israel at the age of 18, was serving in the Israeli Defense Forces, and he was taken hostage close to the Gaza frontier on October 7th. He was 19 years old when he was abducted, and he has had 2 birthdays while being held by the savages. 2 birthdays, 19-year-old abducted, and he's the last living American still being held hostage by Hamas. And they're believed to be holding the bodies of 4 Americans that they have murdered while they were hostages. And, I just for a moment, I thought, isn't this what nuclear weapons are for? Because these savages have no place on earth that they should be allowed to roam free. The Democrats would try to break them out of jail, I suspect. Aren't they amazing? Yes, they are. They still have the dead bodies of 4 Americans that they took hostage and murdered. 2 birthdays, 20 and 21, while being held by the savages. Was 19 when he was abducted and taken hostage by these things. I don't want to call them people. Isn't that amazing? And more hostage, and they're holding the dead bodies hostage that they murdered. You can see why the region might be experiencing some anger from time to time. And amazing. Hey, yeah. Oh, we have a difference of opinion. Yes, we do. Isn't that great? This is speaking of the region and the Democrats. Kind of comes together here. Disney, the Disney people, they're really something a lot of the time, aren't they? Disney plans to open a Disneyland kind of Disney, what do they call them, an amusement park, I guess, in the United Arab Emirates. Isn't that fascinating? Now, it should be noted that in the United Arab Emirates, homosexuality is a crime. It's a crime. It's against the law, punishable by law. But wait a minute. Didn't Disney pull out of everything, and that they're just the Disney Grooming Syndicate has announced the construction of a new theme park in the United Arab Emirates, a Middle Eastern country that criminalizes homosexuality. Isn't that amazing? And the CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, used to be a well-respected corporate executive. This is a thrilling moment for our company. Announced plans to build an exciting theme park in Abu Dhabi, whose culture is rich. They didn't stop there. Whose culture is rich with an appreciation of the arts and creativity, all evidence to the contrary. And it'll be authentically Disney and distinctly Emirati. Now, if it's distinctly Emirati, as is pointed out here by Breitbart, that means no gays will be allowed. No gay, but they're not going to have any. They're not going to do any. Disney does. They take the old classics and turn them into gay stories and stuff. More proof that this is an unprincipled and demonic company driven by nothing more than avarice, greed, and hate. Disney hates normal Americans, which is why they seek to destroy our kids with drag queens at Disneyland and Disney World, and deadly transsexual propaganda in the movies, the animated movies they make for children. Nevertheless, they, here they go hunting for money from a country and a population that punishes and prosecutes people over how they conduct their personal lives. No sense of irony, these people, right? One of the reasons I point this out from time to time, because they really, and the more time that passes, the less these people on the left have any sense of irony whatsoever. Isn't that amazing? The United Arab Emirates, Fox News notes, the UAE, however, has a history of human rights violations, including the criminalization of consensual same-sex sexual conduct between adults, according to a 2023 report from the U.S. State Department. Penalties for individuals guilty of consensual sodomy of a man included a minimum sentence of 6 months in prison. I wonder what happens in there. Penalties for men dressed up as women or entering women's spaces were up to 1 year in prison and a fine of approximately $2,700. The exact same company that 3 years ago went to war with Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida over a perfectly reasonable bill that outlawed exposing grade school children to adult sexuality by way of instruction on sexual orientation and their books like, Gender Queer and all that. Now, one of the most important points, the Breitbart people writing, one of the sleazy moves Disney CEO Bob Iger has made since his return as CEO to Disney is an attempt to rewrite his own history with respect to the Florida anti-grooming bill. This degenerate liar, Breitbart writes, and destroyer of children, now claims that former Disney CEO Bob Chapek screwed up engaging in America's culture war. But he says, while the then former CEO Bob Iger was in exile, he blasted his successor for not coming out strong enough against Florida's anti-grooming bill. Well, they couldn't be bigger hypocrites. I mean, they're the biggest hypocrites in the world. They're the left, and that's who they are. That's what they are. Because they're Democrats. And Disney, honestly, once such a great, great American company, and now look what they've done. Now look what they've done. Big bunch of loons. I am telling you. And at the same time, the people at the Daily Caller have a story today. More Democrats. Democrat Senate candidate running in toss-up states. Co-sponsor bill to eliminate women's sports. Eliminate women's sports? Well, there's a conflict because they want, men pretending to be women to compete against women and girls and steal everything from them. Their trophies, their scholarships, their victories, their hard work. 2 congressional Democrats seeking to win in toss-up Senate contests in states won by President Donald Trump are co-sponsoring legislation that would eliminate female-only spaces and infringe on the rights of girls and women to compete against only members of their own sex in sports. Democratic Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff, also known as Oshat. Jon Ossoff and Democrat Michigan Representative Haley Stevens, who voted against legislation to bar biological males from women's sports earlier this year, are backing what they call the Equality Act, a bill that would make gender identity a protected class under federal anti-discrimination law. The candidate's decision to support the far-reaching legislation comes as Republicans accuse the 2 lawmakers of catering to left-wing gender ideology that is at odds with their own voters. Now, nearly 70% of Democrats or participants who lean Democrat oppose biological males participating in women's sports. But what they want to do is erase the idea of gender altogether. Now, what needs to happen here is need to pick a school, a college, and have only men sign up to be on the women's swimming team. Only men sign up to be on the women's soccer team, right? Have only men sign up for all the women's sports. Because their idea is only men are going to sign up, right? And they're going to say, "Oh, I'm a lady," right? Because you don't see women. I read about a case about a week ago of a young woman who wanted to compete in male sports, and it lasted 1 weekend because she competed. The male athletes mopped the floor with her, and she said, "I don't think I want to do this anymore, compete as a male. I think I'll go back to competing as a female." But the Democrats are looking to eliminate gender altogether. And therefore, all sports will just be sports, knowing that it's only going to work one way because they're filthy, dirty, rotten, corrupt people, Democrats. Did you see Jasmine Crockett, Democrat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett? She's got her eye on, at least a category of person to be the Democrat nominee for the presidency in 2028. Jasmine Crockett's big idea, that's coming up. There was the big CEO, finance CEO, Jamie Dimon. He was actually doing an interview, wasn't he, on television, and he's talking about how the Democrats, first they created a California where water doesn't come out of the fire hydrants because they thought that would be a good idea. And then they had the big fires that burned Los Angeles or major swaths of Los Angeles to the ground. And now they're making it impossible to rebuild. You can't even get back to your house because the Democrats won't let you. But Jamie Dimon, who's a rich guy, I'm sure he's got really beautiful mansions there and all this good stuff. And he said he's changing the name of red tape, because the government has all kinds of red tape before you can get anything done. Said he's changing the name of red tape to blue tape because the Democrats are making it impossible to get anything done.
I changed the name of red tape to blue tape because it's the Democrats who seem to want more and more regulations. We need good regulations. We need good food. We need good financial system. We need good. It's just not more, and more. And you see it in everything, permitting and licensing.
Yeah, now what he's got to do here is come around, because everybody has to do this. We need to stop calling the Republican Party, identifying the Republican Party with the color red states and blue states, because the communists of the Democrat Party have never been farther to the left. And every country on the planet Earth identifies the left with the color red, except the United States of America. And the reason for that is the left got to choose because of Tim Russert and media people who years ago said, blue state, red state, we used to swap them out every 4 years on the election cycles. This year, Republicans would be red. 4 years from now, Republicans would be blue. And that was always kind of stupid anyway. But it's because they didn't want to be identified with red. And then they said it was like musical chairs. Let's just stop switching them back and forth. And let's make the Democrats, the party on the far left, let's make them blue. No, let's not. Let's take that back. You talk about red tape and blue tape. How about red states and blue states? Because the Democrats have never been more red in the history of the world. Now, we have, we got so much more still to get to. But we do have a bit of Jasmine Crockett because she's afraid that the Democrats are going to pick a white guy to run for president in 4 years.
It is this fear that the people within the party, within the primary system, will have about voting for a woman because every time we voted for a woman, we've lost
twice
so far.
Hillary.
And I think that that's a natural fear because we
Kamala.
just want to win. So there's a lot of people that are like, you know
stuff.
what? Like, let's go find the safest white boy we can find. I'm just saying.
That you assign the safest white boy we can find. Racism is normal for Democrats. They're all racist. If you're a Democrat, sorry to have to be the one to break the news to you, you're a racist. Your whole party is racist. And that means you. And Jasmine.